that's catastrophic in nature, and a home, a physical home, is not on the type of foundation it ought to be on. The storm clouds gather. This is the idea that some storm clouds gather over physical homes is a reality, okay? Now the suggestion at this point is that when those storms come, if the house is on a proper foundation, what's less likely to occur? Total loss, right? There may be a leak sprung in the roof, there may be this, that, and the other, but there may be some damage, but what is less likely to happen? Total loss. That's the correct answer. Now here's the question. Are financial houses any different than physical houses? If your financial house is on the right foundation, what happens when the catastrophic storms of life gather over the financial house? And do they?
Oh yeah.
I could tell you in the last 7 weeks of my life, they've been some of the 7 most trying, difficult weeks for me personally I've ever lived through. I don't desire to repeat them. I've had a brother-in-law diagnosed with terminal cancer. I've had a close family friend whose youngest was just diagnosed with acute cell B leukemia. I have, from a health challenge perspective, I've had a next door, a kitty corner across the street neighbor that we've been very, very involved with and very close to, crash on the operating table and come within an inch of his life from dying during some back surgery, being put into ICU, surgery completed finally later that week, and I won't go through all this. You don't need all this fun and blood and gore from me, but you know what? I have just watched the catastrophic storms of life roll in. And it's been turbulent. You've all had those experiences. You're all aware of people that have faced significant health challenges. The storms are the catastrophic events. I'm going to put health up here as one of the big catastrophic events in life that can really derail the financial house. What are some of the other catastrophic events in life that can have major impacts?
Markets.
Okay, markets can be difficult. We'll call that the economy. Okay? What else can have a major catastrophic impact on a financial house?
Loss of a job.
Yep, unemployment, right? UE. Unemployment. What else?
Yeah.
Premature death. Can we call that PMD? Premature death? Can you think of anything else?
Running out of money.
Lost.
Living too long.
Longevity?
Lost.
Okay. We'll go longevity. What else could be a catastrophic risk to the financial house?
Uncovered liability.
Uncovered liability. There's a big one. We're going to talk a little bit about that in a few minutes. Do we live in a litigious society? Have you noticed? Yeah? What about life events like, but beyond premature death, what about life events such as divorce? Birth of children? Especially if there are complications, right? Okay? We'll call it divorce. We were just talking a little bit about natural disasters, right? Can you think of any other catastrophic risks that we face?
Parents get Alzheimer's and go to nursing home.
Okay? Absolutely, long-term care. There's a huge one. There are all kinds of catastrophic risks. Now, my question is, how do you view yourself as a professional? As a professional having conversations about these things, I'm going to differentiate in just a minute between the 2 types of shops that I believe exist in this industry, in this profession. And I'm going to ask you, in some fairly straightforward terms, to evaluate, and there probably aren't any of you that will say I'm absolutely this or I'm absolutely that. You'll go, well, maybe I'm a hybrid. Maybe I'm some of both. Maybe I'm some more of one than the other. But I'm going to ask you to evaluate where you're at and how you run your world, how you see it philosophically, because I think it will really, really be helpful to reflect. And beyond reflecting, to be able to say, am I the more comprehensive risk management professional that I probably ought to be as I'm dealing with people's financial houses? Am I looking at it in a complete and a holistic sense? Or am I a little like this other side of the T-chart we'll walk through?
I'm gonna interrupt you.
Please. Yeah.
This is kind of an important piece that he's talking about. I really want you guys to kind of think about this. You have heard from Marita, you will hear from Marita. Her big push right now, what good looks like. That's all we hear. And so as a part of what he's about to say to you, one of the things that, and I'm gonna focus on this at the rally, one of the things I really want you guys to sit back and think is, what does good look like for me? You know, Horseman's gonna give you their version, John's gonna give you his version, I'm gonna give you my version, everybody's gonna give you their version, but you've got to decipher, what do I wanna look like? And we need to start painting that picture. You really need to be able to establish, what is my vision, you know? What do I want my office to look? What do I want people, my clients, to perceive me as? So really kind of think through that vision, because I think that's something that, you know, after today, even down the road, we need to individually come back together and really decipher, what do we want that vision to look like? What does good look like for us? Okay.
Absolutely, thank you. That's right in line with what we're discussing here. As we think about the financial house, both our financial houses and the financial houses of those that we serve, here's my question. How do you know whether your house, and again, I could be asking a group of educators in a faculty meeting or somewhere, sometime, I could be asking this question of them. I could be asking this question of an educator one-on-one in their classroom. I could be asking this question of you as a group of business owners. Doesn't matter what context I'm in. My question is, how do you know whether your house is currently on the rock or the sand? You're the professionals. And that's not an easy question for any one of you around this table to answer in a 30-second paragraph. It will not be easy for any educator you're meeting with to answer that question either. And the typical response to that question when I ask it is what? Well, I don't know. Well, would you like to know? Yeah. Wouldn't it make sense for us to get together, mark your card? Let's get together. Let's talk for a few minutes, because if I were still in the Horace Mann world, and if I were walking into schools full time, and if everybody just pointed and said, there's the guy that has helped me put my house on a solid foundation. There's the rock versus sand guy. There's the guy that's taking care of my financial house. If I were referred to as no more than there's the rock versus sand guy when I walk in, I would have probably felt that I was succeeding. Most of you, some of you, as you walk in, are referred to in other ways. For mostly the good, I hope, right? But the point is, hey, there's the Donors Choose guy. Hey, there's the, right? But if I'm branding myself appropriately with my world and my clients, when I walk into a gathering, it's, oh yeah, there's the guy that takes care of my financial house. It's that simple. Now, here's the question. As it relates to the financial house, they don't know whether they're on the rock or the sand. That's your opportunity when you garner that, I don't know, to suggest, hey, mark your card, let's get together, let's discuss that. If I happen to be with that educator one-on-one and he or she looks back and says, it's a great question, I don't know where I'm at completely there. Let's get back together with spouse, significant other, or otherwise, and let's discuss it. I probably am not going to go too much further into my conversation with people than that. before I set the appointment and get back together with both decision makers. If a secondary decision maker exists, which may be the primary, by the way, right? Now, having said all that, let's move to module 2. Boy, that was a pretty, I called that a module? That's a module? Look at this. Okay, let's now move to this idea that I am now either with the educator one-on-one or the educator and significant other, both decision makers. I'm going to walk back through that conversation. Many of you, and let me do it again very briefly, many of you may have heard the childhood fable of the wise man that built his house on the rock instead of the sand. Financial houses generally do better, just like physical houses, when they're on solid foundations. But you know as well as I do that from time to time storm clouds roll in. Those represent kind of the catastrophic things that can really move that entire house right off the side of the hill and into the ocean, right off its foundation, if it isn't on a proper foundation. My question to you is, what are some of those catastrophic exposures? Remember we discussed this in your classroom last Wednesday? What are some of those things we discussed? I'm going to paint that picture again for significant other, right? Then I'm going to suggest there are only 2 types of shops in this world that address these comprehensive risk management needs. Decide today I probably like T-charts. Okay? There are only 2 types of individuals, or shops if you will, that address these types of needs. One I'm going to affectionately refer to as the chop shop. And the other I'm going to refer to as the risk management firm. And my question to you today, realistically, you can see I'm doing part of this the way I do it with a client, part of this to speak to you in your realms as the business owner and as the professional. The question is, which of these particular sides of the T-chart do you find your philosophy lining up with most predictably and most consistently? What's the basis of the chop shop? See if you've ever heard this before anywhere. The chop shop, and this is manned by your typical agent, your typical broker, your typical banker. I don't care what distribution system in our industry they're part of. The agent, the broker, the banker, whoever it is, will typically ask, what do you have? They'll ask it in different ways. What do you have? Let me see your deck sheets. Let me see your policy. Let me look at that account. And then what does the chop shop typically do? They say, not only what do you have, but what does it cost? 3, we're going to make a comparison, apples to apples, because here's what I have that can be comparable to what you already have. And then the 4th thing that ends up taking place in this process is, if we happen to cost less, come do business with us. Anybody ever seen that operate in the world? We've kind of conditioned the public to want to function that way.
Say 15%, 15 minutes.
15 minutes will save you 15%, right? It's the world we live in, and if you ask any one of these individuals, you or anyone else, have you ever been dealt with this way? What will every one of the people you talk to say? Yes, I recognize that process. Yes, that's precisely the experience we've had with XYZ organization, right? And I don't care whether it's in the financial planning realm, whether it's in the PNC realm, whether it's in their banking realm, whatever it is, it's probably looked more or less about like that. And what is the fatal assumption? Can somebody analyze that chicken scratch and that process right there and that philosophical approach to the world and give me a sense for what its maybe many, but at least its chief flaw. What's the chief flaw with that way of thinking?
Cost is the only thing that matters.
Cost is the only thing that matters. That's definitely a problem with it. I don't know if it's its chief flaw, but it's definitely one of the major flaws.
It never gets to what they need, that's what they have.
Here we go. Give that man a cigar. You have cigars?
Figure it out.
You'll get it figured out. That process absolutely misses the most critical responsibility that you as the professional have. Let's back up. How many of you have ever been into a doctor's office? Raise your hands. Anybody ever been to a doctor's office? Let me describe this. You go in. Oh, look. Yes, you have. Here's the challenge. You go into the doctor's office, you wait for way too long. Huh? And you fill out that form again. And I swear, if they ask for that form again, because my allergies haven't changed, and I know they're all doing, I know it's all about due diligence, but guess what?